So a long time ago, some people were analyzing a very interesting endgame, and then Fisher came by. He stopped at the board for some minutes, and then said that they're doing it wrong. They were basically calculating variations. Now Fisher just said, rook has to be there, knight has to be there, and king has to be there. He used schematic thinking. That's basically to think about the best squares for your pieces, from where your pieces are going to be the most effective. So today we're going to take a look at one example on schematic thinking. And as you can see this position here, white has an edge because black has backwards pawn here on d6, and white of course wants to attack it. So I want you to pause this video for a minute and think about a scheme. Where should white put his pieces and his pawns? Okay, so this is a game between Nisipiano and Judith Polgar, and Nisipiano came up with a very nice scheme. As you can see, he wanted to get more space here on the king side, also prevent any pawn breaks, any counterplay from black, which is also very important in endgames. You don't want to allow any counterplay, of course. And with c4 here, he's also stopping the move d5, getting rid of this backwards pawn. And he basically wants to also put his knight to this b6 square to squeeze black even more, and probably put this bishop to a square from where it attacks this pawn. So this would be just this b4 square, the best square, also just pinning the pawn to a king. This would be very nice for him. So let's see what he did. First of all, he played bishop to b6, stopping this pawn from ever advancing to this b5 square here, creating counterplay maybe on the king side. So this was a very nice move here, prophylactic move. So black just plays rook to d7, he doesn't have much. And Nisipiano starts his scheme with f3. Now we can see rook to c8, moving a rook to a better square, and a4. As we saw, the scheme is to put this pawn here to also support our knight when it's going to come to this b6 square. And it was just in time because when Judith attacked the bishop, he managed to play a5. Now Judith attacked a rook, and white moved it to this e3 square. Now the point of this move, you would probably think that this is more logical here, but the point of rook to e3 is actually also to kind of prevent the move d5, because as you can see, for example, if you play d5, this rook would keep an eye on this pawn also, and yeah, it's also kind of a prophylactic move. And it's a pretty nice move, I think. So yeah, now black played knight to e8 with maybe the idea of pushing f5 and getting some counterplay on the king side. Now this is probably the best idea for black here, since on the queen side he really can't do much. As you can see, everything is blocked. He also has to keep an eye on this pawn here, of course. So f5 would be pretty nice to get. So first, before stopping f5, white played b3, which is of course in his scheme. He also attacks a bishop, so she moved to this e6 square, and now she is probably threatening to play f5 here and you know, try to activate, get some counterplay at least. So what do? You play g4, stopping f5, and now rook to c8. Not much to do. Well, if she still tried to play f5 with g6 supporting this square here, well, this wouldn't be so great, because even if she manages to play f5, we can just take everything here, and then again this rook here on e3 is pretty useful, so we can just play f4, and this is going to be really bad for black. As you can see, what is he even going to do? He can't take. We're probably gonna take on the next move here and take another pawn here. So that's really not great for black. So that's why she just went back to this c8 square. Now improving the position of the king, also defending knight for a moment with king to b2, and knight goes back to f6. Maybe trying to get threats of playing d5. And you have to be ready for this. He just played a rook back to d3 in order to, you know, pressure this pawn and also avoid any stuff like d5 here. Because now, of course, since we played b3, her bishop is not able to come back here, attack the rook, because we're protecting this square. So that's fine for white. And what is black going to do? Well, nothing. She just played knight to e8 back. He's still following his scheme with h4, just stopping any pawn breaks, unnecessary pawn breaks on the king side. And after f6, he played h5, fixing the pawn structure and going after the d6 pawn. So now after knight to c7, rook to d2, knight to a8, trying to probably take this bishop and leave white with a pawn here on b6. So now the knight can't go to this b6 square, and yeah, this could be an option here for black. But white plays knight to a4 since he wants to get his knight to b6, right? So now if you take the bishop, of course there's a fork and you're just going to lose this game. So you can't take the bishop, but she played rook to c6. Now it was the time to retreat with the bishop. I mean, bishop is still going to be pretty important piece, as you're going to see. It's going to attack the d6 pawn. So now black plays rook to c7 and c4. Now these rooks are rather useless on this c-file because of the move c4. They're doing nothing here, so it's a completed scheme for white here. But how to continue here? What should white do to further attack this d6 weakness? That's the question here. After rook to c8, try to find the best squares for white's pieces to put maximum pressure on black. Okay, so the knight, as we said, wants to go to b6 to squeeze black. You know, he doesn't have anything here, but not right now because black is going to take your knight. And you want to put your bishop to this diagonal here, just to put maximum pressure on the pawn, so black's position is going to break. So that's why Nisipiano here played rook to d1. Very good move, as we said, preparing a bishop maneuver to this b4 square. And now Judith made a crucial mistake, playing knight to c7, just gives up the b6 square for the knight, like we wanted. So that's bad news for black. Now the rook had to move, and suddenly things work kind of tactically with knight to d5. And now the rook is trapped actually. If black takes the knight, of course, we recapture. And the rook has no squares, as you can see, is going to get captured on the next move. So black can't take here. And it's also check, so black has to move. She moved to f7. And now still the rook is trapped after the move knight to b4. Now we're just winning an exchange and also a game. So let's go back to the start and see how amazingly Nisipiano found a plan and a scheme for just winning this game. So here it was clear that white has an advantage because of this backwards d6 pawn. But it wasn't so clear where to put your pieces, where to put your pawns, how to put the maximum pressure on this d6 pawn. So first of all, he wanted to prevent enemy counterplay. He wanted to get his pawns onto their best positions. And then after he did this, as we can see here, after he put his pawns on their best squares, now it was the time to put his pieces also on the best squares, with bishop attacking the d6 square and knight coming to this b6 square also. As you can see it again here. He just stopped any counterplay from black. As you can see, black can't do anything. He can't move any pawns. He just has to shuffle pieces around. And quickly we see a mistake, knight to c7. The knight comes with tempo. And we can see the game end in a beautiful way of trapping the rook. So, yeah, this was the first example on the schematic thinking. I really hoped you liked it. I think it's a very instructive one. Because, you know, most of the people would probably not realize this advantage in the game, or would just somewhere go wrong. For example, they wouldn't stop enemy counterplay, and black might get out with something like f5 or d5, getting rid of his weaknesses. So yeah, it's really important to look at these games, these instructive examples. So yeah, I just hope that it was an interesting and instructive video to you. And if it was, please subscribe, share the video, and I'll see you in the next video.